Okay, so this just happened. This is not a drill. This is not a hypothetical. The Pentagon just gave the green light, the absolute go-ahead, for the Tomahawk cruise missile to be sent to Ukraine. Now, as of this recording, all that's left is for President Trump to put his signature on the final approval. But the military side, the Pentagon assessment, is done. They have officially cleared the weapon for transfer. For months, the Pentagon has been assessing its own stockpiles, running the numbers to see if they could give these game-changing weapons to Ukraine and still cover all the other potential threats around the globe. And the numbers came back. The assessment is in, and the conclusion is that the United States has such a massive stockpile of these things that, quote, the U.S. wouldn't even feel it in their stockpiles. Let that sink in for a second. We are about to hand Ukraine a 1,000-mile strategic scalpel, and it's a weapon we have in such numbers that it's considered expendable. This is a game changer. But why is this happening right this second? Why now, with all the tensions, with everything going on? It's because Russia crossed a line. Over the past few months, specifically since August, Russia has fired the 9M729 missile at Ukraine 23 times. Now, if that missile designation sounds familiar, it should. That is the exact missile, the SS-8, that was so dangerous, so destabilizing, that back in 2019, it made President Trump ditch the INF Treaty. That's the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. Russia built this missile in secret, lied about it, and violated the treaty, and now they are using it to terrorize Ukraine. We know this for a fact. One of those 9M729s flew over 745 nautical miles deep into Ukraine, and the debris was found, stamped with the part numbers. Russia isn't even trying to hide it anymore. So Putin is testing the West. He's using a treaty-breaking, nuclear-capable cruise missile, and America's response is to give Ukraine a 1,000 nautical mile answer. The Tomahawk gives Ukraine the ability to play some 3D chess with Russia. Putin wants to use his 1,500-kilometer range missile? Fine. Ukraine will now have a 1,600-kilometer answer. Today, we are going to do a deep dive. We're going to break down exactly what this weapon is. We'll talk about the Russian threat. We'll talk about the body of these weapons, the engines, the brains, and where this all goes from here. Because this is a game of chess that is being stepped up on the daily. First, let's talk about the body of the Tomahawk. Are you a body person or a brains person? Well, the good news is the Tomahawk has got both, so you're going to love this thing. The Block 5 Tomahawk, the variant we're talking about, is about 18.5 feet long. If that doesn't make you feel a little insecure, well, good for you. But after it launches, its wings pop out, and it has a wingspan of about 8.5 feet wide. The whole thing is wrapped in what is probably one of the coolest parts of this entire system. It's not just metal, it's wrapped in special paint and advanced composite materials that make this thing low observable. That's the military buzzword for stealthy. This thing is designed from the ground up to be a ghost. It is potentially even invisible to most, if not all, of Russia's radar systems. Its radar cross-section, its RCS, is said to be smaller than 1/100th of a square meter. That is insane. 1/100th of a square meter. To a Russian S-400 radar system, this 300-pound missile looks smaller than a seagull. It's a statistical anomaly. It's a ghost in the signal that their systems are probably programmed to filter out as ground clutter. It weighs about 3,300 pounds at launch, and that's mostly fuel, which burns down throughout its flight. This new version is 200 pounds lighter than the older Tomahawks because of its advanced titanium and carbon fiber construction. And that lightweight, high-strength body allows it to do something that just makes me extremely happy. This missile can pull 20 Gs. 20. It can pull 20 Gs of force without snapping in half. If that doesn't make you excited, I don't know what will. Every fighter pilot, every aviation enthusiast out there just felt a little tingle. You're welcome. A human pilot would be liquefied at 12 Gs. This missile can jink and weave with forces that are physically impossible for a human, making it a nightmare to intercept in its final moments. But its real stealth trick isn't just its paint or its tiny RCS. It's how it flies. This missile flies low, insanely low. We're talking 100 to 300 feet off the ground. It uses a built-in radar altimeter to follow hills and valleys, to hug the terrain. It's not flying over radar, it's flying under it. It's flying in the ground clutter, where surface-to-air missiles, SAMs, simply cannot see it. Their radars are pointed up, looking for jets at 30,000 feet, not a 100-foot-high, seagull-sized target screaming at 550 knots. And it's very hard for fixed-wing assets to see it as well. How is a Russian jet supposed to find this thing? Their best jet, the Su-57, supposedly has this decent AESA radar. But will that radar, with its look-down, shoot-down capability, be able to discern this tiny missile from the background noise of hillsides, terrain, and buildings? My assumption? I don't think Russia is quite there yet. Not by a long shot. This is really, really likely going to make Russia nervous because they know they don't really have a lot to go up against this thing. This is an impossible problem for them to solve. You can compare it to Russia's bigger, clunkier Kh-101 cruise missile, which weighs over 5,000 pounds. This isn't a measuring contest, but I guess it is when it comes to cruise missiles. The Tomahawk is so compact it fits in a 21-inch VLS, vertical launch system tube on a warship. Or, for Ukraine, it could be mounted on the back of trucks. The folding fins and versatile design make it perfect for guerrilla warfare. Since 1991, this has been a mainstay of the U.S. military. We have fired over 2,500 of these things in combat. And the mission success rate? It's an insane 95%. You can't say that about most weapon systems. This thing sneaks in quiet. It nails the target. And it leaves them wondering if it'll ever call them again. Now, let's move on to the power plant. The engine. This is where the magic of its range comes from. It's a Williams F107 turbofan. It's tiny, only about 2.5 feet long, but it puts out 587 pounds of thrust. And here's the kicker. It only needs about 450 pounds of JP-8 jet fuel to fly for 1,000 nautical miles. That just screams efficiency. It's absolutely wild. It gets up to a speed of about 550 knots, so roughly Mach 0.75, but it's so efficient. It just sips that fuel. We might as well call this thing the Tomahawk Prius version. Yeah, I'm sure the enemy would love that. We just got smacked by a whole bunch of Priuses. But that efficiency is what gives it one of its most terrifying capabilities. It can hang in the air for about 6 hours. It has a loiter mode. It can fly to a target area and just circle, waiting for further taskings. It's not just a missile, it's a loitering munition with a 1,000-mile range. And the engine design is stealthy too. It cuts its heat signature by 40% compared to earlier versions. Why does that matter? It means Russian jets like the Su-35 or the Su-57, which rely on their infrared search and track (IRST) systems to find stealth targets, would have an extremely hard time trying to pick this thing out. Locking onto this missile with infrared is going to be almost impossible. It's a cold-blooded killer, literally. And the brain on this thing, the Block 5 Tomahawk, has anti-jam capabilities for GPS jamming systems. Russia loves its GPS jamming. Well, this missile was designed for it. It barely drifts, even in a GPS-denied environment. It's said that it might only drift about 0.1 miles or even less before it gets back on course. Its circular error probability, its CEP, is under 16 feet. So even when jammed, it is going to be able to contest those high jammed areas, which is just huge. And at launch, there's no big afterburner plume, no big heat flash. That allows it to be very low observable and very undetected from the second it leaves the launcher. This is especially important for Ukraine, as they will probably be doing some sort of guerrilla warfare type operations. Kind of like what we've seen with their F-16s, launching them from highways. This thing is going to do the same thing. They're going to launch it from very austere, hidden locations, and you have to stay resilient and concealed. So, as you can see, the engine in this Tomahawk, it's all about going far. It stays cold, and it disappears. This thing is basically doing the ultimate ghosting. All right, next. Let's talk about the payload and the brain. The warhead on this thing is kind of the star of the show, right? It's 945 pounds of high explosive with a smart fuse. This is critical. You can set it to blow on impact. You can set it to go deep and drill into a bunker before it explodes. Or you can set it to do an airburst. It can detonate about 165 feet up and just rain down fragments. Devastating for radar sites or troops in the open. But how does it get there? The guidance starts with a ring laser gyro IMU. Yeah, I'm going to get you those acronyms, don't worry. That's an internal measurement unit for the first leg of the flight. Then, GPS-aided INS, which is an internal navigation system, just like a fighter jet has, is used for mid-course tweaks. As it's making its way, it's updating, making sure it's going to get down to about 10 feet of accuracy. That's 3 meters of accuracy. That is just insane. And then, at the end, it uses DSMAC, another great acronym. That stands for Digital Scene Matching Area Correlator. Who made these things up? I love that person. This is a system that takes real-time infrared pictures of the ground and matches them to stored digital images for pinpoint final guidance. This is pure science fiction. It takes over the terminal phase. It snaps a picture every 4 seconds, compares it against up to 2,000 stored images of the target, and then guides itself down to that 3-meter, maybe sub-3 meter final hit. That technology is just wild. And if it gets GPS jammed, it has another backup. It switches to TERCCOM, which stands for Terrain Counter Matching. That's a radar that can give it more precise coordinates by mapping the terrain below it. Or it can just sit up there and loiter. It can just wait. It can sit up there and wait for new orders via that satellite link. And that's what makes it so deadly. Ukraine isn't just going to use this thing by itself. They're going to plug it in. They're going to plug it into their air power, their ground power, their sea power systems. They're going to plug it into their C4I. That stands for Command, Control, Communications, Computers, and Intelligence. Again, these acronyms just get better and better. It just makes me all warm inside to say these things. That is a network that basically links everything all together. And once everybody's talking to each other, all the right pieces are in place. This thing can basically fly the entire mission on its own, having teamed up with that C4I setup. Again, it's independent. It delivers exactly where it counts. No Stage 5 Klinger handholding required on this one. Okay, but you know, like they say, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. So let's talk about the Russian side of this. That's the 9M729. NATO calls it the SSC-8. That is a ground-launched cruise missile. It's big, 20 to 26 feet long, about 20 inches wide, and it weighs around 5,000 pounds. It has a 1,000-pound warhead. And the big key with this thing, the reason why it's causing so much consternation, and yes, I'm trying to use big words, is that conventional or nuclear warheads can be loaded on this thing, which is what makes everybody so nervous. The range? Russia says it's under 310 nautical miles because they want it to stay legal for certain treaties. But more likely, it has more of a 1,500 nautical mile range, or 2,500 kilometers. It's subsonic, like the Tomahawk, and it uses a turbofan engine. It flies low, like the Tomahawk, and it has a similar INS, an inertial navigation system. It uses Russia's version of GPS called GLONASS with their satellite systems, plus Turkcom, that terrain counter-matching. And like we talked about, Ukraine confirmed 23 strikes since August, with one of those flying about 745 miles. And it killed 4 civilians, and one of the pieces of the debris that was there was stamped 9N729. So Russia, you're not exactly going to great lengths to conceal this thing. So basically, the big deal is Putin is testing combat-ready, hideable, nuke-capable missiles, and now Trump and the Pentagon are basically stepping things up. The Tomahawks now give Ukraine the ability to answer a threat that could be either conventional or, hey, worst-case scenario, this escalates. So let's talk about a few different scenarios. How would this Tomahawk actually be used? Scenario 1 takes place near Odessa. 24. Tomahawks launch from trucks. They climb to 5,000 feet. Then they drop to 150 feet over the Black Sea. They are snapping photos of the coast, and it's matching them to their pre-programmed targets, guiding them right into the Sevastopol harbor. Russia's radars barely blink. They don't really notice anything. The first group of missiles flies north to fake them out. Maybe some of the radars start to pick that up. The S-400s waste missiles trying to shoot these, but these are just ghosts, because they avoid them with that terrain-following tactic. The real pack hugs the cliffs. Their delayed warheads punch through the piers, hit ammo crates. Boom! A chain reaction of explosions. 2 Russian destroyers start to sink. And then the last wave pops up and air bursts over the helicopter pads and the fixed-wing pads. They shred rotary wing and fixed-wing assets, and the ports are dark. Fuel tanks are burning. The Black Sea Fleet has been cut off. Scenario 2. This one takes place in the Carpathians. 18 Tomahawk missiles fly 560 miles to a refinery in Russia. They use GPS, and then they switch to Turkcom to dodge any type of jamming. 2 of them climb high on backup navigation as a backup to the entire strike package, just in case. The first wave drops air bursts. They rip up the pumps, ignite the oil. 200,000 barrels a day are gone in a massive fireball. And then the follow-up Tomahawks take out the control rooms and the pipelines. This would be directly targeting Russia's POL, the petroleum, oil, and lubricant industry. And it would make an impact on Russia's ability to wage warfare. But then again, Russia is going to strike back, and they're going to retaliate in a reciprocal or an even greater manner, as we've seen before. All right, for the last scenario. 32. Tomahawks cover about 400 miles to Rostov's rail yards. They fly 200 feet off the ground, slipping between radar beams. One group climbs high as decoys, and the rest follow the river. Delayed warheads crack bridges, trains full of ammo for Russia's bomber fleet. They wipe out 132,000 gallons of fuel and turn basically that fuel into a fireball. And then the rail yard has to shut down for over 24 hours. And then it gives Ukraine the ability to counter somewhere else. So those Tomahawks give Ukraine the ability to take direct action and kinetic action against the war production industry of Russia. But again, all this is likely going to make Putin rattle his nukes even more, maybe even threaten strategic battlefield nuclear attacks on Ukraine. Now, obviously, the ultimate goal is to avoid that. But with Putin already testing these cruise missiles, to me, it shows an amount of frustration. So he's likely not getting the gains that he wants, and he sees now that the West and Europe are stepping up their defense and their support of Ukraine. And that's probably making him really question the strategic ability for Russia to get exactly what they want, to basically take over all of Ukraine. Maybe now he's a little bit weary on actually getting that done. So that's why they're stepping up these attacks with these 9M cruise missiles, and they're basically threatening, hey, we can use strategic nuclear weapons whenever we want. We've just chosen not to. But now, maybe having these Tomahawks, maybe that's going to make Russia basically think a little bit more before using these 9Ms. But there it is, guys. We covered the stealthy body, the marathon engine, the solo flying brain, the way that this thing can operate, basically use its brain without any input from the outside world. The Tomahawk is just a next-level, very advanced weapon, and it lets Ukraine hit back at Russia's 9M729 deep strikes. It's the kind of force, who knows, that could push Moscow to the table instead of maybe just continuing this endless grind. What do you think? What do you think this new development might be? And do you think Ukraine will actually get the Tomahawk weapons? And what do you think Russia's response would be? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. So let me know. And hey, the best compliment you can give me is just watch this video right here. When you watch this video right here, it helps the channel grow immensely, and I would greatly appreciate it. So, I'll see you on this video right here.